Cultural diversity in healthcare, Hispanic population. Issues with cultural diversity. Before we discuss cultural diversity in healthcare, I would first like to talk about some of the issues. Issues with diversity influences culture in many ways. First, we use culture to identify who we are and who we identify with. This helps us understand what our beliefs and traditions are built on. Once we have an identity in a society, issues of diversity become more apparent. Diversity in this world creates segregation and eventually levels of class in a society. Individuals experience race, class, gender, and sexuality differently depending on their social class and their structure of their society. Values and belief. A cultural group's values and practices play a major role in diversity. Most people of the same cultural group tend to have the same values and practices. These practices become their cultural norm. Throughout history, we have a tendency to judge others that have different practices than our own. These judgments have caused people to have a deep hatred for others simply because of a cultural's practices and just simply because they're different from your own. We are all brothers and sisters. The topic of race has had a devastating amount of influence in our society for many of centuries. The concept of race started as a socially constructed idea to segregate and categorize humans in groups. Our physical traits, traditions, ethnicities, language, among other things, was a form of political corruption used for power and oppression in our society. Data shows that the DNA of any two human beings is 99% identical, and we all share the same set of genes, scientifically validating the existence of a single biological human race and one origin of all human beings. In short, we are all brothers and sisters. In modern society, the understanding of race is transforming. Today, research on human variation have proved the scientific fact that biological races do not exist among us. Although race issue still exists today, the newfound knowledge will help our society increase cultural awareness and understanding that our differences are not so different. Social injustice creates movements. Social injustice among diverse groups in our society create movements in history. These movements promote human rights, equality, and combating discrimination. The civil rights transformed policy change for Black Americans to have equal opportunity and rights in the United States. This movement started as a local protest of oppressed Black Americans in the South and eventually surged to a federal movement. I work at a nonprofit community health center that provides healthcare to a diverse population. Many patients live within the community and seek comprehensive care, including their physicals, mental, emotional, or social issues, and their financial issues within the clinic. As a nurse, caring for such a diverse population, you have to consider the differences of every individual patient. Important factors like religion, background, language, culture, beliefs, race, and even sexual orientation can alter a care. The community depends on us as a support system in all areas of their life. It is our duty to provide care without bias and become culturally knowledgeable to all cultures within the community. According to Campina and Pacote, 2003, obtaining cultural knowledge about a patient's health-related beliefs and values involves understanding their worldview. The patient's worldview will explain how they interpret their illness and how it guides them through their thinking and doing and their well being. Diversity has affected society in many ways. Social movements increase the awareness of one's culture, and new genetic evidence has influenced a path to positive change in our modern society. As we continue to gain knowledge and awareness of the growing cultural diversities, we will learn to be respectful and accepting of our own differences. Knowledge and awareness will provide respect and acceptance. Educate yourself. In the United States, culturally competent nursing has become a major part of care due to the rising number of cultural diversities. Nurses, as well as all healthcare staff, are required to provide high quality healthcare. To appropriately provide care, nurses need to be self aware of others' cultures and others' beliefs. The overall significance of research validates that there is a direct link with cultural competence in healthcare disparities. The more culturally competent healthcare workers are, the less chance health disparities will occur. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, in 2010, just over one third of our population reported their race and ethnicity as something other than non Hispanic. This group increased from 86.9 million to 111.9 million between 2000 and 2010, representing a growth of 29% over the decade. The growing amount of multicultural patients poses a challenge for nurses and other healthcare professionals. Nurses need to acquire particular skill and knowledge to give patients proper treatment with sensitivities to patients' beliefs and cultures. Cultural competence in nursing is an important part of nursing care. A nurse who lacks knowledge about biocultural, physico-psychological, and linguistic differences in diverse cultural is likely to have an inaccurate assessment. In particular, issues that impact care of our Hispanic population include language barriers, cultural diversity, family dynamic, and access to insurance. There is a growing number of Hispanics living in the United States. As the Hispanic population continues to grow, so does the need to provide competent care. Language barriers, cultural diversities, family dynamics, and access to insurance are some of the issues that impact care of the Hispanic population. According to Sobel and Metzler, Zutra interviewed 40 outpatient surgeries, family members, nurses, and other staff to examine the experience of Mexican Americans. The interviews revealed that Mexican Americans expected and valued expression of friendliness, that nurses were perceived as uncaring if they did not include the Mexican American values, including communication in Spanish. It is important to know if a patient is Spanish speaking only that they should be provided the access of an interpreter. It is their civil right to have access to interpreter services. Do not attempt to speak Spanish if you are not fluent in the language. Misinterpretation of information can cause serious health disparities. Family dynamics. Other factors that play a major role in caring is the family dynamics, including family during patient and family teaching, recognizing the influence of both internal and external loci of control, and accepting and acknowledging the use of herbal therapies will be crucial for helping nurses create a care environment of trust and confidence. Patient assessments. Differences to include with the Hispanic patients are factors in everyday life. Getting diseases is a bigger concern than dying. For the Hispanic communities, issues of morbidity rather than mortality are of greater concern, which includes lifestyles and behaviors affecting health. Environmental factors such as exposure to pesticides, unclean air, and polluted water, and the ongoing need for more effective use of existing health services. Cultural competence is with the whole patient, not just religion, not just language. Vulnerable population. It is indisputable that there is a growing number of immigrants in the United States. Factors that are impacting the vulnerable population includes socioeconomic background, immigration status, language barriers, and access to health care. For Hispanics, among the immigration population, Hispanics constituted 17.6% of the national total population in 2015. In terms of healthcare, language barriers pose a major problem for the Hispanic population. In the context of a hospital or medical clinic, where medical terminology can be complicated and communication often takes place quickly in the midst of elevated emotions, this language barrier can be especially problematic. In fact, compared to both white Americans and African Americans, Latinos generally report feeling less listened to and misunderstood by their doctors, as well as less able to be themselves or and understand their doctors. They are twice as likely to leave a doctor's office with unasked questions. They are also far more likely than whites to feel that they are treated unfairly by providers or by the medical system. I can relate to this issue. In my clinic, there is a fair majority of patients that are Spanish speaking only, and some clinicians that are English speaking only. The clinicians depend on the interpreter services to communicate very delicate and serious medical information. As a Spanish speaking nurse, I have witnessed miscommunication between the clinician and the patients. I have also witnessed the clinician attempt to use Spanglish, like in English Spanish, so they do not need to call an interpreter. I understand that healthcare can be overwhelming. There are moments that we feel like there is not enough time, not enough staff, not enough services, but we have a responsibility to all that we care for. The federal statutes of the Civil Rights Act 1964 state the following: no person in the United States shall, on ground of race, color, or national origin, be excluded from participation in or be denied the benefits of or be subjected to discrimination under any program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. This means every patient has the right to understand all the medical information that is told to them. Issues related to language barriers can cause serious health disparities, potential lawsuits, and possible loss of license. Skill training and cultural competence will improve patient care, decrease health disparities, and protect patients from serious adverse events. Goal in healthcare. Providing cultural competent care is a patient's right. Research has proved that there is a connection between cultural competence and healthcare disparities. The goal for the future is how healthcare can improve these issues. The American Academy of Nursing strives to take the lead in ensuring the measurable outcomes be achieved that reduce or eliminate health disparities, commonly among racial, ethnic, uninsured, underserved, and unrepresented population residing throughout the United States. The plan. The issues surrounding cultural diversity and need for cultural competence in nursing demonstrates the importance for cultural competency training for all healthcare personnel in order to provide better care for all of our patients. Cultural competence training should start in the schools and should continue in the workplace. The Association of American Medical Colleges developed the tool of assessing cultural competence training to assist schools in developing and evaluating cultural competence curricula to meet these requirements. Continued cultural training in the workplace should be a yearly training that requires an evaluation. Healthcare professionals need to understand the need to always be culturally competent. Training should include examples of health disparities and medical errors that have occurred due to incompetent care. Secondly, increasing the interpreter services use and option. One issue with the critical need for more interpreters. We cannot use a family member to translate medical information. Although a family member may be fluent in the language, they may misinterpret the medical information in their own understanding. The use of Spanish language by healthcare professionals was identified as a component of the system support. These findings support that need for Spanish speaking professionals in healthcare. But if you are not fluent in Spanish, use an interpreter. It is not fair to our patients. Benefits in providing cultural competent care can reduce health disparities and engage the patient in their overall health and understanding. It will increase trust between the patient and health professionals. Western Journal of Nursing research found that participants identified culturally defined concepts, cognitive perceptive concepts, and system related concepts as being related to their perception of culturally competent care. These findings indicate that healthcare providers need to take in account the personal, cultural, and environmental context when they are providing care to Mexican Americans. Communication was repeatedly identified as a key component of culturally competent care by focus group members. Communication include, among others, the following: pleasant, kind, human, respectful, professional, and sensitive. The use of Spanish language by healthcare professionals was identified as a component of the system support, and these findings support that for Spanish speaking professionals in healthcare. If a healthcare professional is not Spanish speaking, it is important to implement more use of interpreter services. This is a part of culturally competent care. Patients value the fact that providers are sensitive to diversities. The more skilled we become with cultural care, the better services we will offer our patients. Thank you, and this closes for the day. Thank you very much.